Now, I'm going to have to throw just a little disclaimer in here right at the beginning, because we are going to be discussing something and showing some pictures that are, quite frankly, a little bit racist. So I'm just going to pretty much steal Disney's disclaimer and put it right here. In 1910, the pride of the Royal Navy was HMS Dreadnought. Now, we've covered pre-Dreadnoughts on this channel before and some of the disasters involving those, but we've never actually touched on Dreadnought herself. HMS Dreadnought was the most advanced battleship in the world, and her name is an indicator of just how important she was, as obviously Dreadnought went on to be the label for a whole new category of battleship. But in February 1910, she was boarded not by her own crew, not by enemy forces, but by something a little different. She was boarded by a group of early 20th century pranksters in fake beards. And amongst those pranksters was the one and only Virginia Woolf. This is the ridiculous true story of the Dreadnought Hoax. Now, this ludicrous prank was masterminded by a man called Horace de Vere Cole. And by 1910, this guy was already a notorious prankster who'd already left a swathe of people in his wake who either loved him or hated him. Not unlike today's modern TikTok pranksters. I'll let you be the judge of them, but most of them come off as obnoxious pricks. Now, some of Cole's previous stunts had involved things like, during his Cambridge days, he impersonated the Sultan of Zanzibar, which was something of a precursor to the prank we're about to talk about. Yep, by 1910, Cole had decided to try and pull off something bigger. So out he went and convinced 5 of his friends to take part in what he had planned. These friends included, as we mentioned, Virginia Woolf, then Virginia Stephen, her brother, Adrian Stephen, Guy Ridley, Duncan Grant, and Anthony Buxton, most of whom would actually go on to form the Bloomsbury Group later on. And if you don't know, the Bloomsbury Group was a very influential group of writers, philosophers, just a group of very forward-thinking people. And the prank that Cole had planned was to pose as a group of Abyssinian royalty on a state visit to Britain and see just how much they could get away with and for how long. And here's where we get to the bit where we have to remember that this was 1910 and people had slightly different attitudes towards dressing up in a certain way back then. Because this was touchy at the time, and in 2025 when I'm recording this video, is definitely not okay. And this all revolved around the fact that the group involved definitely didn't look Abyssinian. And for those of you wondering where Abyssinia is, Abyssinia was the old name for Ethiopia. And the reason they chose Abyssinia is because it was one of the few African countries that actually managed to resist colonization by Britain. So there was a kind of a mystery around the royal family and nobody really knew anything about them. And so the disguises they needed to wear didn't just involve clothing, they involved creative use of makeup. They blacked up. Now, I don't know if YouTube's going to let me say that, so I'm going to censor it just in case, because who knows what will put you in YouTube jail now. But I think the pictures speak for themselves. So, deciding that this was a good idea, they went off, found a theatrical costumier, and borrowed some long, flowing robes that could probably pass as Abyssinian. They got some false beards, they got some headwear, and they got the face paint that they were going to use. Then, reasonably sure that none of the people they were going to meet knew or understood Abyssinian, they started to research a gibberish language, with the idea being that they wouldn't speak any English, and Duncan Grant would act as their interpreter. So they had their disguises, they had their vague plan of what to do, and at this point, they needed to set up the visit. So, Cole sent a forged telegram to the Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Navy at Portsmouth, which was addressed from the Foreign Office announcing the imminent arrival of a group of Abyssinian princes. And those Abyssinian princes wished to inspect the pride and joy of the Royal Navy, HMS Dreadnought. Now, there's a good chance that this is where Cole and the others thought their plan would probably fall at the first hurdle. But to their surprise, and I'm sure delight, the Navy bought it, hook, line, and sinker. And so, around rolled the 10th of February 1910, and the group arrived at Weymouth where HMS Dreadnought was docked. And this group of writers, philosophers, thinkers, dressed in their ludicrous outfits, wearing, shall we say, not particularly racially sensitive makeup, and speaking gibberish with probably what I can only imagine was the most offensively bad accents they could put on, had the red carpet rolled out for them. A naval honor guard saluted them when they arrived. The naval band were playing the Abyssinian national anthem, which they got wrong, and instead of playing the Abyssinian national anthem, they played the national anthem of Zanzibar. Seems like despite this going ahead, everyone was a little bit confused about what was happening. And then the group was escorted aboard HMS Dreadnought, the Royal Navy's most important battleship, where they were shown the ship's guns, the various cabins, the torpedo tubes, all the while muttering in this made-up gibberish language that they'd come up with. And apparently one of the phrases that they kept repeating all the way around was bunga bunga, which is meaningless. But Duncan Grant valiantly, every time they said it, translated for them, saying very sincerely, "The Prince is impressed." And all the way through this, you've got to remember as well that in amongst this group of British white dudes dressed as Abyssinian princes was Virginia Woolf. If it was bad enough that nobody had seen through the disguises they were wearing, nobody realised that there was also a woman dressed up as well. So the tour came to an end, they were given an honoured and respectable goodbye, and they went off on their way. How nobody who was there saw through the disguises, or if they did, why they didn't say anything, could come down to a number of possibilities. Maybe taking into account the fact that this was 1910 and probably not a lot of these people knew what an Abyssinian looked like. Maybe they were just too worried about, losing face, or too worried about being polite to say anything. Maybe, British naval hospitality was winning out above the obvious fact that this was just a bunch of people dressed up in silly costumes and makeup. We won't know exactly, but safe to say that when it all came out afterwards, the Royal Navy were less than pleased about it. Once it was all over, Cole leaked the story to the papers. And on the 14th of February 1910, the Daily Mirror ran the story front page with pictures and everything. Of course, the Royal Navy was humiliated and immediately demanded that there be some kind of punishment for this group of jokers. But legally speaking, they hadn't done anything wrong. All they'd done was completely pull the wool over the eyes of the Royal Navy, and in the process revealed some serious problems in naval security. So, being generally unable to punish them properly, Cole was actually attacked in the street by sailors with canes, which that in and of itself sounds like some kind of Benny Hill sketch, where you can see Charlie Chaplin still dressed in Abyssinian robes being chased around the streets of London by men with canes. The whole situation was ludicrous, and it obviously became a national joke. And interestingly, bunga bunga went on to be used as a phrase to mean absurd or nonsensical behaviour. That was how far-reaching this story was. And I've also discovered that more recently it was used to describe former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi's sex parties. So, HMS Dreadnought went on to fight in the First World War, obviously, but kind of remained just as well known for the incredibly ambitious and humbling prank that was played by a group of writers before the war even started. And I'm sure the cries of bunga bunga echoing down the corridors of the ship remained for a long time afterwards. And Virginia Woolf herself probably took inspiration from this for some of her future writing, where she touched on, fluidity of identity and social roles and the absurdity of some societal conventions. And ultimately shine a light on some of the absurdities of British society and the class structure that was so rigidly stuck to. And the whole thing kind of cemented Horace de Vere Cole's reputation as an incredible prankster forever. And the Dreadnought hoax remains probably his most ambitious and successful prank of them all. And one of the main things to take away from this is the next time you scroll across an annoying TikTok prankster, or you see somebody filming themselves in the street pranking people, just know that this is nothing new. And I'm sure if Cole were alive today, he would probably be up there for the most annoyingly successful TikTok pranksters. But if you do want to go look up some of his other pranks, I recommend going and having a look, because the man was eccentric, to say the least. I'd just like to take this moment to apologise on behalf of Britain in 1910 and the members of Cole's prank group to the people of Abyssinia, or current-day Ethiopia. And hopefully everybody can see the comedy in this, even if it was a bit racist. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, remember to hit that like button, that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.